Composing meaningful music, earnest music, is a calling. With experience, one can learn to intelligently fill in with musical noise, effectively, the silence. Of course, the virtuosity of the instrumentalist who would play it is flattered. To be flattered is important because it brings the audience to feel that bubble champagne moment of artistry, which is necessary to all humans on earth, as well as the deep, thoughtful, and eventually spiritually elevated, though it is not unnecessarily not in the lighter music as well, elevating the spirit. I'm just thinking that sometimes the know-how makes it possible to write music which flatters the immediate element of excitement or great feeling of lightness of being that we recognize in ourselves. Some people call it entertainment, some call it escapism, some call it a way to forget oneself from one's own angsts about life as well as the work or the meaning of the relations in which we're involved. In other words, all what humankind is confronted to from the beginning of times towards today and onwards, regardless of the fashions and the ways of things, technologically or form over emotion, emotion over substance, substance on the surface or substance on the depth. And substance by itself is not necessarily a compositional virtue. I think that when you go through pulse, through rhythm, through dance, through melody, through song, hinted or suggested or evoked in the playing of an instrument, you have you touch the essentials, like the Spanish call baila for dance and canta for singing, canta baila. But you also have reflecta, and that is also an aspect of it which can be embedded or not. And the fact is that music is a language, be it, but it reaches different levels of our consciousness or of our daydream or our need to escape into imaginary worlds where the music fulfills an emotional need to burst a bubble if it's too much to take, and or to soothe and to be a very beautiful solace for our being. So it could be that, yes, we need different types of music for different aspects of our lives. It is almost like a soundtrack of our lives, music. In the composer's case, the music plays in the head. In the listener's case, it plays either through their devices or when they attend the performance of somebody. There is a beautiful exchange, a communal interaction, a mirror between the giver and the receiver in both ways. And I find it to be this very important because a composer alone imagines worlds, universes to express a storytelling with or without words, or not even a storytelling, a mood setting, or just a thought process. At many levels, it doesn't have to be explicit other than what itself the music says. It's not necessarily a translation of a language. It's its own language. And when we plunge in it, we knowingly or not, it's almost as if we fetch a bottle with a message in the sea that was left by somebody who knows how long time ago, who is no more around, and whose message is universally meaningful to the person who receives it. So the listener, the reader, the analyzer, if it were in a school system, of a score of music brings back to life something that was meaningful to the composer perhaps a century or more ago, or closer in time. It was at their own present outside of the context of time passing. And I find it fascinating how music of the past is present and future in our daily lives, either misunderstood, either played in a way that perhaps doesn't do it justice. And how do we know if we do it justice? Well, we have scholars to explain it to us, musicologists to write articles about it, and very erudite people who give us an awareness of what we sort of like by intuition, not knowing very well why. And the more we understand the style, the language, the way the music talks to us, the more we explore it, or perhaps even acquired taste of knowledge of a certain style brings us to experiencing almost enjoyments of levels in this music which we wouldn't have expected. Because not all music reveals itself like texts, like paintings, like art forms, like films, like everything that is created by mankind is something that relates to mankind and the experience of mankind, from the elevation to the enjoyment or the soulful or human experience of pain and hope and anxiety and desire and love, and all these can be translated through words of daily life, which become special when used in a poem, when they can be used separately or individually in any daily sentence, but they take a different meaning according to whom they address these feelings to. And I find that it's very humbling to know that something that means to me in my experience of life, filtered or metamorphosed through the music signs on a document, can come alive later somewhere in another civilization, perhaps another time frame, possibly another season of life. And it could mean something, whatever it does, but meaningful to the person who receives it and who in turn perhaps shares it by bringing it back to life, or bringing it to life, not necessarily to the life that the composer saw in it. The ear of the beholder. And I find that if composition is some kind of reaching beyond space and time to other humans for whom it might mean, I find that by itself it's a very hopeful element of one's life's motivation, besides one's faith, if one has such, or one's humanity connection to one's alterity, acceptance, or one's tolerance to others, one's building one's own opinions about art form, society, and everything. And somehow it remains separate from the person. The creation has its own life, its own purpose for these who discover it, for whom it means something, whatever it is. If it uplifts them, if it brings them solace, it brings them joy or entertainment, wow, what a, what a beauty to hope it, to have brought something and therefore bring it ahead to others. Grateful for what we received, pay it ahead to others. Of course, in a lifetime, it's gratifying when you see it happen with people who think about your music or play your music or want to perform your music or think that your music is valuable to them, which is to me the most humbling aspect of it all, because it doesn't matter what it means to me. It is mattering to me, obviously, but it's beyond me. It's a gesture to the other, to the significant others who will appreciate it or not. And some will not, and some will reject it, and many will probably ignore it. And most likely, it is the fate of most composers, writers, or art creators to be either ignored, either forgotten for good or bad reasons, because they might be right or wrong. Regardless, it's not a judgment about value of the hierarchy of their decision of putting you in the category of the essential or the unessential or the miscellaneous, or possibly the ones for this or that. It could be for functionality, if it's movie music, video game music, computer music for commercials, I don't know. It can be so many things where the sound coating suggests some kind of awakening to the soulfulness in each of us. And it either amuses us, either entertains us, and perhaps we get tired of it, as other and so many come to us. Everywhere we go, we can hear music in a background or as such by itself, and then we change tastes and we evolve, and we like this singer more than this group, and then another one. We might go back to it. It's generational sometimes, for the pop music more so. The classical music being not necessarily only in the past, is more the reflective, but doesn't exclude to be also a very dancing, entertain music as well. You can entertain with a level of reflection of yourself without separating the light from the deep in the scope of the human experience. It could be that perhaps most likely we are produce of humanity, where we need all the elements that allow us to live our lives soulfully, intellectually, culturally, and music can become what it is probably for most people who are not musicians in their performance themselves, the soundtrack of their life. If they exercise, or if they get married, or if they go to the funeral of a dear one, music brings a different level of solace, excitement, endurance, energizing, and perhaps you discover styles you didn't know, and you connect more to this and to that. And it's not eliminating, it's adding layers of options by saying, oh, I like this and that, not necessarily for this and that moment. And I find it as a composer very humbling and very meaningful that since I apply myself to write music, regardless of its textual complexity or intellectual endeavor, from simplicity to complexity, if it's the purpose of the expression, not by itself, virtuosity of its own or for its own, it's not necessarily an end either by itself, but it's a vehicle that touches us at different levels of our beings. So, very grateful for this so-called universal language that can talk so much individually to all of us in our inner worlds. And I'm very grateful to have been able so far to share of my inner worlds for those for whom it means to pick it up on their own end. Thank you.